Yo guys, what is up? It is Alex or Black Eye here. The ship of Theseus is a thought experiment about whether an object is the same if all of its components were eventually replaced. Let's say you have a ship, and you slowly start replacing each wooden board the ship is made out of. Does a certain time come when the ship is a completely new ship, or does the ship stay the same regardless of how many of the wooden boards were replaced? Keep this in mind as we discuss today's topic. The start of SPL Season 8 introduced 8 brand new teams and went away with traditional esports organizations. These teams were the Tartarus Titans, Valhalla Valkyries, Camelot Kings, Atlantis Leviathans, Oni Warriors, Olympus Bolts, Jade Dragons, and the Solar Scarabs. The Solar Scarabs quickly became known for their wildcard playstyle and their unique teammates. The original Scarabs roster consisted of Slaney, Layers, Inbound, Baronic, Zapman, and Soloer Troll. Slaney is a widely revered SPL coach, having coached teams as early as 2017. Also, his favorite food is mashed potatoes. Thank you, SMITE Wiki. Very cool. Layers is a legendary jungler, having won multiple world championships on console, and many fans were excited to see how he'd do in the big leagues. Then we have Inbound, another ex-console world champion. Prior to joining the Scarabs, he had a year of SPL experience under his belt with Obey Alliance in Season 6. He's also formerly played with Layers during his console days. Next we have Baronic, another ex-console world champion. Are you guys seeing a pattern here? Having also played with both Inbound and Layers during his console days. Then we have Zapman, another legendary SMITE player, who just came off of winning the Season 7 SMITE World Championship. Finally, we have Soloer Troll, albeit a younger player but nonetheless experienced, having played competitive since 2017. This original roster instantly became a fan favorite, especially among console players. But over the years, this roster would slowly dissolve one by one, and the Solar Scarabs would lose their team identity. Here's what happened. The first roster change was a bit messy. In a very simple, watered down explanation, Soloer Troll was benched from an in-studio SPL match due to not having the COVID vaccine. The Scarabs decided to instead play with their coach for these matches. Layers wasn't particularly happy with this decision and wanted to play with a former teammate, More Wolves. After a scrimmage leading up to this SPL set, it was leaked that Layers said some less than kind things about the team and specifically towards his coach, Slaney. Layers soon after this released a now deleted twitlonger where he gave his side of the story. Not going into much detail, but relating to the actual SPL match Soloer Troll was benched from, he mentioned he was frustrated because he believed his former teammate, More Wolves, would have helped their chances of winning the set and didn't just want to essentially give up a loss for free. Layers was then kicked from the Solar Scarabs and went as a free agent. Around this time, the solo laner for the Atlantis Leviathans, Julio, was permanently banned from SMITE and indefinitely suspended from the SPL. This was due to having extremely toxic chat logs, the most notable being where he threatened to send a bomb to someone's house. The Leviathans then offered the Scarabs ADC, Zapman, a spot on their current roster, and Yarkor would move to solo instead. It's widely believed that Zapman left due to the childish nature of the drama between the Scarabs and Layers, as well as him believing the Leviathans are a better opportunity for him. The Leviathans ended up winning Worlds later that year, so I'd say this was a smart decision on Zapman's part. He is still currently playing for the Atlantis Leviathans, and the Solar Scarabs picked up Stewart as Zapman's replacement. A few weeks after Zapman left, the Tartarus Titans offered to have Layers play in an SPL set with them as they had just dropped their jungler Scary D. Following the success of this SPL set, they officially offered Layers a spot on their team, and Layers accepted. He is still currently playing for the Tartarus Titans. The Solar Scarabs then picked up Scream the following week to replace Layers. In the span of less than 2 weeks, the Solar Scarabs had lost 2 out of their 6 original players, and everyone thought that the Scarabs would spend this time growing as a team to prepare for the World Championship. And that's what they did. In a pretty shocking turn of events, the Solar Scarabs exceeded almost everyone's expectations and placed 3rd in the SMITE Season 8 World Championship. But the end of the World Championship means the start of a new season, and many SMITE fans knew that this also meant brand new rosters. Many assumed that a lot of the teams would stick together, and in general, many of them did. Although when the Tartarus Titans announced their Season 9 roster, many were surprised to see Soloer Troll on this roster instead of their previous solo laner, Benji. Benji was instead coaching them. And just like that, before Season 9 SPL even started, half of the original Solar Scarabs were gone. All that's left is Inbound, Baronic, and Slaney. That being said, their new roster seemed somewhat promising. At the start of Season 9, they picked up Scary D as their new solo laner and stuck with the rest of their squad from Season 8. Months went by, and thankfully there weren't any roster changes, and many were hopeful that this team would stick it through the entire year. But goddamn were they wrong. At the end of July 2022, it was announced that Sam4Soccer was kicked off the Jade Dragons, and replacing him was the current jungler for the Solar Scarabs, Scream. Sam4Soccer ended up moving to the Scarabs, essentially just swapping junglers. Scream wasn't an original Scarab, but it's still worth noting. 2 to 3 weeks later, Inbound was told that the Scarabs are going to try out new supports, essentially just kicking Inbound. At the time of this announcement, there wasn't too much information going around as to why Inbound was kicked. Many fans speculated that Inbound was kicked due to his perceived lackluster performance. Later, we learned from Sam4Soccer's stream that the team just wasn't happy with their performance in the previous Masters tournament and thought changes needed to be made. This made sense, as the Solar Scarabs actually placed 9th, below an SCC team. Later, it was revealed that Yarkor, who was kicked off the Leviathans around the same time, would replace Inbound as the Solar Scarabs' new support. Baronic was now the only member left of the original Scarabs roster except for his coach, Slaney. It's worth noting that following Inbound getting kicked, there were still roster changes happening. Cyclone Spin ended up getting dropped from the Tartarus Titans, and they picked up the Scarabs ADC, Stewart, to replace him. Yarkor would then move from support to ADC, and the Scarabs would pick up Hurrywind as their new support. At least Baronic still had Slaney though, right? Well, on November 6th, it was revealed that Benji was no longer coaching the Tartarus Titans, and that the Titans' new coach would be Slaney, the former coach for the Solar Scarabs. Baronic was now all alone in terms of the original Scarabs roster. Every single teammate, including his coach, had now been replaced, some more than once. Baronic went from having a brand new team full of friends and former teammates to, well, complete strangers. Obviously, he knew his current team from playing against them during SPL matches, but it just wasn't the same as the previous teammates. Baronic is truly the only remaining link back to the original Scarabs roster, and it's extremely sad to see all that he's endured. But the sadness doesn't end here. On November 14th, Baronic would say his goodbyes to the Solar Scarabs with a very simple tweet. Stepping down from the Solar Scarabs. Best of luck to them moving forward. Seeing this tweet on his profile, directly under his pinned tweet, is absolutely tragic. This is because his pinned tweet from February 28th, 2022 is, "I will win worlds this year." The ship of Theseus is a thought experiment about whether an object that has had all of its components replaced remains the same object. This has been Black Eye, and thank you guys for watching.